Welcome back to another podcast with myself, your host for this evening, Adam Ivel, and my good friend, HondaPro Jason.
What's up, man?
How you doing, dude? So you are right now in Florida, am I right in saying?
Yeah, Southern Florida.
Locked down like everybody else. So
locked down like everyone else. Yeah, I think I'm on like 20. I think it's 23 or 24 days now.
Wow, crazy.
That's crazy.
Have you been doing much essential trips out at all, like for shopping and that, or do you get it all delivered in, or have you
We
just
get it all
stocked
delivered
up?
in. We're getting all our shopping delivered in, all our food, all our essentials. I mean, like we redid the back. We have like an outdoor area at the house, and we needed lights for it. So we had the lights brought in, and it's something we never thought of doing. You know what I mean? Like when you go shopping, it's just you go to the shopping center and you go to the food mart and you get your food and bring it home. Now we have to call, like, I don't know how it is in the UK, but here you have to find a time. Like you have to almost bid for a time for them to drop it off. And that sometimes takes a day or two to find a time that's open. Then they eventually go shopping for you and can't find anything you want. And everything's being, you can't find this, but how about this? And they finally bring it to the house. We let it sit outside unless it's frozen for like 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
And then we open up the bags with gloves on. We wipe everything else down with like a Lysol disinfectant, like a wipe, and then we bring it in the house.
Wow.
So it's like this huge ordeal just to bring groceries in. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. Well, you got to keep safe, but we don't want to discuss these times. We want to be able to let people have an hour or so without having to worry. So I'm going to throw some questions at you, and hopefully we can get some cool stories out of you and all that malarkey. So I would love to just get an introduction from you first, though, so anyone that may not have heard of you can know who we're talking to.
Sure. So my name is HondaPro Jason. I'm a Honda brand advocate. I spent 20 years selling Hondas in Chicago, right outside Chicago, Illinois, in the U.S. And from there, I started doing YouTube videos. And in fact, that's where I met Adam, actually, is through YouTube, and started watching him, some of his old fun. Actually, I think I started on your second or third video. I started watching you and reached out. I still remember the day I was sitting in a parking lot of a Target and reached out to him like, hey, dude, listen, I love your videos. Like, I just want to say hi. I'm from the US. I just started a YouTube channel, and we hit it off like immediately. And my fan base started growing, and I eventually stopped selling cars. And now for full time, I do YouTube, and then I train Honda salesmen on technology. So the newer cars, I'll go to a dealership anywhere in the world, and I'll train them on the technology of the new cars. And as many of you know, I travel a lot, this is weird for me now being home, because I'm normally on the road 6 or 7 days a week, traveling all over the world. So that's me.
That is you, sir. And let's let the people know, before we jump into more questions, what cars you actually have in your garage right now.
So right now, I only have 2. I have a 2016 Mugen Honda HR-V. It's the only Mugen-equipped HR-V in the U.S. It's actually my wife's and my son's car. And then I have a Phoenix Yellow Honda Civic Type R, which was the first. It's the 2017 first one ever painted Phoenix Yellow. I bought it black. I had it all custom painted Phoenix Yellow. There are probably 9 or 10 videos online about the car. It was stripped all the way down to bare bones. The car was about 3 or 4 months old. I bought it, brand new. 3 or 4 months later, I stripped the entire car down. Every bolt, every nut, every washer, all the rubber, all the glass, the interior, the engine, everything got stripped out of it. Got painted Phoenix Yellow, which is an old Civic Type R color, and had it all put back together. So that car is, you say, in my garage. That car is currently in Southern California.
Okay.
It's been there since SEMA, and I can't get it. So it's sitting there. It's just been tuned. 454 horsepower to the wheels.
Nice.
So
what's out of the fly? That must be what, like nearly 500?
I'm sorry?
Is it nearly 500 brake at the fly?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, probably 5 or just over 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
That is crazy.
Yeah. And I can't drive it, though.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be able to drive it even if it was sat in your garage, really.
That's true.
So take it as a blessing, because now you're not tempted to take it out. There we go. We're keeping safe. Keeping safe. So before we go any further, though, you with that car, you did something really cool with it, and something I really respected and loved. So you obviously knew you were going to be painting it, but you didn't tell anybody, and you went around to all those shows and just let people sign it.
I had a signature session where people actually took a permanent silver Sharpie and put their autograph on my car. And there's, again, some photos that it looked really cool, which is crazy is when I first decided to do it, it was at Eibach Meet in Ohio. And the car was probably about 2 months old. Nobody would sign it. I had all the markers up on the windscreen. And I'm like, hey guys, I want you to autograph my car. And they're like, no way. Why would I? It's a brand new Type R. I'm not going to touch it. So I actually had to autograph it first. Once I did, eventually there was a line of, and people waited a half hour, 45 minutes just to put their autograph on the car.
That's so cool. I loved it. I thought that was one of those real community things. And I feel because of like the internet, and I'm not going to go too much into it because I could rant for ages about this, but I think because of the internet and Instagram and that you can become almost famous for building a car, you know what I mean? Like just on a phone, like just because of an app, the community side almost dies off and it becomes almost an ego driven thing where everybody wants to be better than everybody else. And I love that you bought this, which they are very expensive car, and you took it to meets where a lot of people are never going to be able to afford that car themselves ever in their life. And you're like, here's a pen, I want you to sign it because we've met and I want to remember that. Exactly. And it's just like, I think that's so cool. It's such a community thing. I think that's something that I miss a lot, and what I try and keep alive in my meets. You know, we never charge. We did do one proper show, and I understand if you're running shows, you have to charge. But, you know, we want to keep a meet. That's what we want to do. We want to keep it as what it is. It's always the same. We have a little bit of music on if we're allowed, or if we always have food vans. Yep. And it's just, you turn up, you park up, you stop dicking around in your car for the best we can at stop it. And then have people just meet and show the cars off and have fun again and like make it what it was when I fell in love with it all. You know, like my dream is not to have a million people, you know, looking up to me wanting, you know, because, oh, he's got this and he's got that. It's a few people that want to come to the meets and hang out. And I feel the real value is in the community, not in the fame or all that sort of side of stuff that can easily be gotten, but it's not as, you know, easy to maintain and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a great thing what you did with that.
Thank you.
I'd love to ask you the question that I'm sure that most people is on your mind. How did you get into Hondas in the first place, sir? Because you are, like you say, a brand advocate.
Yes.
How did you get into this line that shaped your life almost?
Interesting. So, short story is my parents bought a Honda back in 1987. So they were diehard. My mom and dad were diehard Chevy people. And they just always bought Chevys. My dad was just sick of all the issues he was having, you know, with the Chevys back in like the mid 80s. So he wanted to try this, to him, a new brand called Honda. You know, none of his friends had Hondas. None of my friends had Hondas. I was in high school and they bought a Honda Accord LXI, fully loaded, every toy on it. And it was amazing. Like, it was absolutely awesome. I brought it to high school with me. I brought it on my first dates. I brought it to all my proms, and everyone was freaking out. So I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. Like, this is a pretty cool car. The engineering was outstanding. The build quality, it was just, I mean, I used to laugh at people because back in the 80s, you could, if you took a Chevy or a Ford, you could take your hands on the dashboard and literally just pull the whole dashboard out. Like, that's just how they were. They were just built not real well. Where the Hondas, everything was screwed in. Everything was bolted in. All the bolts had covers.
Yep.
So not only were they bolted in, they put covers over the bolts. And I was like, who does that? Like, what is the big deal? So I started researching the brand and falling more and more in love with it, learning about its the racing heritage and the small community that was building around Hondas. At least, you know, I was in Illinois. Little did I know in California, there's already communities built on it, but in Illinois, not so much. So I was just watching it build bigger and bigger. And when I had the opportunity to work for them in 96 as a salesman, I jumped on it, you know, because I told everyone how cool the product was and how cool the brand was. So that's just kind of how it all began.
And do you know what's so scarily similar with our stories? Okay, so
your parents too?
It was my parents, right? So when I was a kid, my I know this podcast's more about you, but I like the conversation to flow.
This is a conversation.
So when I was a kid, my dad was really, really, really into his Hondas because through his work stuff, he got given a Honda Legend as a company car.
Cool.
And then all of a sudden, like, it was just like, wow, this is brilliant. Like, it was like, okay, cool. Like, so back then it had so much tech on it that nothing else had. And it was like, apart from Mercedes, obviously, Mercedes have all the tech always, but like the price difference is colossal. So it was like, we get all of this for like a quarter of the price. Okay, cool. And like, then from that, it was just, he always had a Honda, whether it was like a Honda Legend or a Legend Coupe he had for a while as well. And like, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, your mum needs a car, so we'll get her this thing called a CRV. And we actually had a Japanese import CRV as the Gen 1. Turquoise, had the big metal plaque thing on the front. And I think when you grow up and there's a brand consistently in your life that's consistently like good, there's never been like, oh, the damn car's broken again. It's always like, yeah, it's great. Like, it's got 1 billion miles on it and it still runs. And, you know, and it's like, it's nice. It looks cool. I used to love that CRV. And I think this is one of the things that's ingrained in me because it was an import. I was like, ours is special because it's an import. Our car is from Japan. So it's a special car. Like it was just like one of those things. And then I did my work. We do a thing called work experience. I wouldn't know what it's called in America, but when you're in school, you have to go and get a job for 2 weeks, basically.
Okay.
I went and got a job working for the Honda dealer because when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to the Honda dealer because he knew the director. So it was always like one of those things. Sorry, my dog's making a right weird noise. What are you doing, dude? Yeah, he'd always take me to this dealer, and he'd just let me run around the cars. And they used to have like an NSX in the showroom. So he was the dealer principal's car, and he was like, he'd let it leave in the showroom. So I was just going to sit in the NSX, and I'd be like, I'm going to have an NSX one day. You know, like, I'm going to have the sports car one day. And like, then the Civic EG was coming out at that sort of time as well. And then the Preludes, and I was like, these cars are beautiful. Like, I love these. And there must be somewhere in my mum and dad's loft, or it's been thrown out and they haven't told me, but all of the brochures from back then, because I just bring them back and read them. So I never read like comic books or anything like that. I'd be reading brochures of these cars. And I think that's just what's so ingrained in my head. And like, so why I feel so comfortable around that brand. Does that make sense? It's like one of those like at home things. And I think from growing up being like, so when we were younger as well, one of the company cars my dad had throughout the company, it broke. It was an Accord, a 1990 Honda Accord, LX, I think it was. So like it was really nice, and like it was just dumped in our field. So it was just like, well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go to play with it, you know. So I started like taking parts of it. I was 12 and 13, just kind of not mechanically doing anything, just like messing around with it. I was like, oh, cool, and I'd go and sit in it and pretend like, oh yeah, it's mine, you know, like, and then from that, like, I went and did my work experience at a Honda dealership. Did that, and then I went to college, and all I wanted to be was a car salesman after that. I was like, I want to work in a car dealership. That's all I want to do. And I remember I was sat in sociology. See, this is the thing. I might be like talking how I'm nice and polite and all that, but like, I grew up watching Jackass and skateboarding, and I was an asshole. Like, so like, I went to college and I never did anything, and I was just a waster kid basically. And I remember the dealer principal rang me, and he was like, Adam, and I answered my phone in a sociology lesson. I was like, hello? And he was like, Adam, can you talk? I was like, yeah. Obviously, I couldn't. I was in a car. I was like, yeah, of course I can. And he was like, we want to offer you a trainee sales job with us at Honda. I was like, cool. When do you want me to start? And he was like, next Monday. I was like, cool, I'll be there. And I hung up the phone, and I packed up my bag, and I stood up, and the teacher was just looking at me going, what are you doing? And I was like, I quit. I'm out. I got the job I wanted. I don't need to be here anymore. And I put all my bags in, and I zipped up. He was like, you can't just leave. I was like, of course I can. I was like, of course I can. I'm not under arrest, am I? I can go. And I left, and then I never went back. And yeah, that's how it all started for me. And like, I got to sell the cars. I understand exactly how you mean. Like, you're passionate and you're excited about the cars, because I sold so many Type Rs. Like, that dealership did okay with Type Rs anyway. But like, when I come in, they just said, we sell more than we can actually get. And he was like, it said, for a 17-year-old, you're ridiculous at selling these things. I was like, it's because they're the best car ever. Why wouldn't you want one of these?
There you go.
That's all it was like. And like, and I was just like, why wouldn't you want one? Like, why wouldn't you? Surely when you've got a Type R, you're going to want a car as well to run around in, so you don't ruin your Type R. So get a Honda Jazz. And it was literally, so it sounds exactly the same as you. So it's funny that from such different places in the world, we're both exactly the same. Like, it's like one of those things.
Same, yeah. I felt the same when I was selling them. I felt the same exact way. It was just the passion of how great the brand was. There wasn't, and still isn't, another brand like that, especially in the price range. So it just makes sense. Why would you buy anything else?
Yeah, I completely get it. I've lost touch massively with their more modern stuff, but I don't think that's through any real negative reasons. It's just like, I know what I like, and I like the old Japanese stuff. Like, that's where if I see an old, like even the UK stuff, like a UK DC2 Type R, I see that and I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like, I would love to have one of those in the garage, sort of thing, you know, like, but like, I've just stuck in that kind of generation of stuff. I haven't drove the FK8 yet, like you've got. I drove the FK2. Yeah. Fantastic. Thought it was brilliant. I was like, wow, this is a great car.
If you like that, you'll love the FK8.
But we got to experience it, didn't we? Do you remember? We got the special access at the Honda factory.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, because you were there when we saw my car being built.
Yeah. So that was real cool to actually like experience it with one of the Honda guys driving it around and stuff. So that was like real special.
Yeah, it was cool.
What kept you from trying out other brands of cars though? Because have you never like had a bit of a wandering eye for another manufacturer and just been like, oh, I'd like to try that, or I'd like to give it a go? Or
I mean, I've owned other cars in Honda, not in the past.
Does the internet know this?
No, well, not in the past like 8 or 9 years, but before, like my very first car, you'll appreciate this because you have a similar like car in your garage, or you did for a while. You had that Lincoln, right? Your dad's Lincoln.
Oh, we've still got that. It's a Chevy. Yeah. It's Chevy and Harley. Yeah.
Okay, so my first car was a 1970 Cadillac convertible.
Oh, cool. Okay.
My very first car. So it was long story short, it was my dad's car. And he asked me, what car do you want? I'll buy you, a big car guy. And he was a big car guy. He goes, you know what? Any car you want, I'll buy for you. Just pick out whatever you want. I'm like, I want your car. He goes, why would you? It was a piece of crap. Why would you want that car? It was an old beat up Cadillac. It sucked gas, had a 472 engine in it. And it was just all beat up and raggedy, and the top had holes in it. And I'm like, I want that car. I go, I want to fix that car up with you, and then I want it. Cool. So the next like year and a half, 2 years, we fixed the car up. Rebuilt the engine, resprayed the car, did the interior, put a new top on it. And eventually that was my first car. So I've owned Pontiacs and Chevys and Volkswagens. But once I started driving Hondas, that's all I wanted. They're just so much different in the engineering and the way they're put together and just the fit and finish and everything about the car, just the way you feel when you drive it is so much different than anything else out there.
They're great. I do still love them. And I feel the internet was a little bit harsh on me. Not the whole lot, but when I started doing the drifting stuff, I said if Honda made a drift car, that I could make a good drift car without having to spend all my money trying to re-engineer. Like the S2000 is too good. That's the problem. They made the S2000 handle too good. And it's like to try and make it break traction and hold a drift, it is possible, but it's not as easy as doing it in a Nissan Silvia. So it's like, well, you want to get the car that's already kind of built and designed to do what I need it to do, and then like carry on modifying it in that sort of way. So it'll be live by now, but obviously I've got another EG6. Like I'm still hugely active in the Honda stuff. Like my other EG6 is being finished. Like I've got that Civic Coupe sat there that I'm probably not going to do anything with, but my heart was in the right place with that. But it's like all that sort of stuff. So I do completely get it. I agree. Like my other cars, I think other than BMW, there's no other brand I'd say I love. I love BMW as well. So that's like one thing that I love my M3 and, the old E36 is hilarious fun. But like if I was to take out, if it was like an E36 328 and an EG6, I'd hop in the EG6. But then the problem is if you put an M3 there, then it's like, well, that's just a different ball game to me. Like do you know what I mean? Like it's like one of those things. It'd have to be like M3 or NSX, and then it'd be like, oh, okay, now I'm struggling to choose. Like one of those sort of things. Like, but
like even playing field.
Yeah. For I still adore the NSX, and I still every day look and be like, I hope there's a crashed one that I can afford somewhere. but yeah, so that's cool to know. So would there be any other brands now that you would be tempted to at least try one of their cars and be like, I'm interested, or is there just nothing?
No, so I'll do all the international auto shows throughout the year, when they're in New York and California and Chicago and Detroit. And when I'm there, I'll take a walk around and I'll sit in some of the other cars just to see, because I hear so much about Hyundai and Kia. I hear so much about the new Chryslers and the new Chevys and Fords, and I'll sit in the cars. But just sitting and touching some of the features and looking around, I realized quickly that I don't even have to drive them. Like forget about the drivability of the cars. Just sitting in them, I can immediately tell. Sometimes just by opening up the door, I can tell that it's just not a Honda. It just doesn't have the same feeling. It's not engineered. It's just not as solid. You can see all the corners they cut to put in extra features. Like they loaded it up with all these features and the air conditioned seats and base models and pleated seats and all this great stuff. But then you can see all the shortcomings and all the areas that they took shortcuts to make the car that price range and put all the features in. And I'm out. Like I'm just not interested.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool to hear. That's definitely cool to hear. I'm going to ask you as well, because you said you travel a lot to all the international events, but you don't just do like the manufacturer official auto shows, for instance. You are also very much still dedicated to going to car meets. Like you came to one of mine at my shop. Like, so it's not like you're a, what's the word? Like you're like a snob. Like, no, I have to. I'm only going to the professional media stuff. You're like, no, I want to come to one of your meets. Let me know when there's one on. I'll be like, well, I'll host one for you. Like, you know. So do you have, out of all of them that you've ever attended, one that stands out and you're like, that was special because? So like one meet where you're like, it doesn't have to be the best meet that you went to, because I probably will ask you which you think's the best one that you'd go to, you know, over and over again. But like one that you're like, that was special. That was a great memory.
So there are a couple of them, and most of them are out of the country just because I was so surprised. That's really what it is. Not that they were better or worse, but I went to a meet in Malaysia. I went to what they call the Honda Day Malaysia. And the reason it blew my mind is I was expecting a small group of people, maybe a couple hundred cars. It was done at a college campus. When I arrived, we were driving through the campus, and the campus had different parking lots in the campus. And what I didn't realize is each parking lot had a specific model of Honda. So one had like the Honda Jazz, one had the Honda Stream, one had the Honda Odysseys. And what they did then, the main building, which was an old airport hangar, was like the VIP show area where they had like all the best of the best cars. Now, to get to the other spots, they had buses that would bring you around the parking lot and drop you off so you could see all the other cars in the parking lots. Like it was stupid. Like it was so unbelievably out of control. I was completely blown away. I think I visited one or two of the parking lots and that was it. I didn't have any time. Like I was so just overwhelmed with how many cars, how many people, where they came from, and the build quality of the cars were just outstanding. So that one really, really stuck in my mind. I went to one in Guatemala.
Okay.
Same thing. Got invited to Guatemala to go to a car show. It was they didn't call it Honda Day. They called it, they had some other name for it. So I go to the event thinking, again, it's Guatemala. How many Hondas are really going to be there and how many people are going to be at the show? Well, when I arrived at the show, there was a line. I did a video on it. There was a line that was probably 400 or 500 cars waiting to get in the show. So we're driving by all these cars. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this. We eventually go down this really old dirt road into this Honda event, which, by the way, was held in an old racetrack that had an in-ground swimming pool next to the track, which was open. So we're all hanging out in the swimming pool at the track. It was mind-blowing. They had races and they had a car event. And when I was leaving, I stepped outside for a moment. The show went till about 4 p.m. At about 3:30, I stepped outside the show. And when I walked outside the show, there was still a line of about 50 people trying to get in. And the show was going to be over in a half hour. Like it was that packed. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen and really surprising. So those two shows definitely stuck out in my head.
Awesome. There's some great stories. That's cool. That's cool. They're so random places as well.
You'd expect it like Japan, UK for sure, all over the US. But I think because they don't have as many shows in these other countries and they still have all the Honda love, that people just come out of the woodwork when there is a show because they're not every weekend. Here in the US, you can find a show every weekend in almost every state. Like they're all over the place. So they're easy to find. And people often tell me, I'm like, hey, I'm going to the show. Are you going to bring your car? They're like, no, it's like an hour away. I'm not going to go. It's too far.
Yeah.
Right. And you laugh because in the UK, you guys would drive 2-3 hours to go to a show because there aren't that many of them out there.
Yeah. So we have people coming to our meet in Colchester from like Newcastle, and that's like a 6-hour drive, and it's like both ways. It's like crazy. We have people come from Holland, you know, Leon Lambert and like all of them. Like that, he drives from Holland.
CC and all them. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like it's so insane. It's so cool. It's like do you know what I mean? But they're my friends, so it doesn't even feel like, oh, this weird stranger's driving like a whole weekend to come to my meet. It's like my friends are coming over and we're gonna hang out and look at the cars and talk and you know, just have a good time. Like, yeah, that's cool. Do you have a show that you really look forward to every year, like a staple show that's all, or an event or a meet where you're like, I cannot wait for that?
I'd say H Day.
Yeah,
like H Day is a huge, just because
the New Jersey one.
It's New Jersey and Maryland. So Maryland, New Jersey. Yeah, it's an awesome meet. It's packed with people. I can bring my car there, which I love. Even though I love visiting meets out of the country. Like I go to the Honda Euro meet in France every year, which is an amazing meet. It's awesome. It's like it's a three-day total meet.
Yeah, I've been a couple of times. Yeah.
Outstanding, but I can't bring my car there. So even though it's great for me to go, I enjoy bringing my car because I like to show it off. That's why I bought it. That's why I painted it. I want to show it off to people. I want people to look at it and be inspired to do things like that to their own car. So that's why I think H-Day is like, it's really one of my favorites.
I would 100% agree with you. I think I've been H-Day multiple times. Like, it used to be one of those things where it was like, okay, because like flying over and booking hotels and all that, it's expensive. Like, but I was like, do you know what? That one is worth going to. I think once I used to love going to the north side. East is LA, right? East Coast is LA.
Yeah, no, West Coast is LA.
West Coast. I used to love going to West Coast. North, South, East, West. Oh yeah, sorry, I went the wrong way.
East Coast is New York, yeah.
So I used to love going to the Eibach Meet, and I'd be like, that is like my go-to every year. And I really loved it, and I loved the culture in LA and the passion for the community and all that sort of stuff. But I was like, I found out that Spoon were going to be like, the boss of Spoon Sports was going to be at H-Day. I was like, well, I'm going to H-Day. I'm going to meet him. Like, there's no way. Like, I've still got the signed poster on my wall and like the photos with him. And I got really lucky with H-Day because they granted me media access, and I was like, cool. Like, that's sick. Like, and like, because it's like a big event, a big show. Like, it was like, I remember going and I met so many amazing people. Jay, nice ones, all of that. And like met all of them. And I was like, wow, these guys are all like, to me, they're famous in the Honda world. And it's like, cool, they're just hanging out with me in this media room because we've got aircon and we're all just chatting. And like, and then I can remember seeing Dai, what's he say? Is it Dai? I can't remember his surname. He's a professional drifter that drives the Spoon FD2.
Daisuke, I can't
remember his surname. Oh, it's in my head. I follow him on everything. He's brilliant. Sponsored by Turn 14, an absolute amazing driver. He was there with the boss man, and he was there with the EAT on the track. And I remember I was actually wearing a shirt that was white, yellow, and blue, like all the way down, white, yellow, and blue. It wasn't a Spoon shirt. It was just some generic shirt I got from like a shop, like an American Apparel or something like that. And I was like, it just was a cool shirt. And I remember just standing there because I had the media access. So I'd gone onto the track. I was like, I want to watch them guys have their photos. And then they were like, because I'd met him and spoke to him a little bit. He was like, come. And he pulled me in to the photo of him with the car in front of the main stage where everyone was watching. And I was like, oh my God, this is so insane. Like, and that was probably like, that made H-Day so special to me. And the fact that you can stand next to a drag strip with these 1,000 brake horsepower Civics going up there and feeling that when they're on the two-step, it was like, oh, this is magic. Like, if anybody goes, what show do I need to go to for Hondas? I got H-Day all day long. Like, fly over. It's worth every penny. And like, everyone's amazing and everyone's so fun and chill. And you get to see all the Honda Odysseys and the CRVs with their boots open. Is it like the Dominicans or Puerto Ricans that love to do
usually
that?
Dominicans or Puerto Ricans, they have all the speakers.
Out, and they have like wars with the music, and it's just like the most diverse, incredible.
Oh yeah.
And it's not like weird, like where you go around and like you might take a photo of someone's car and they'll give you like a bit of a dirty look and be like, what are you doing? Like, they were all like, yo, white boy, where are you posting that? That's all they kept getting all the time. Where are you going to post that? I want to see. I'd be like, yeah, watch my YouTube video, or here's my blog. Make sure you check it out. Man, hell yeah, I'm going to check that shit. Like, I used to love it. Like, I was like, everyone's so cool. Like, I used to love it. And like, I made some great friends from that as well. Like, a group of guys used to stay in the same hotel every year. So I was obviously staying in that same hotel every year. And then I started to meet them. And then I'd recognize them. So they'd see me walk around their car and they'd be like, hey man, we saw you take a photo of my car last year. Thank you. And I'd be like, that's cool, man. He's like, come over for a beer. Do you know what I mean? I'd be like, well, sure. And like, I still keep in touch with some of them now. Like Jerry Dale, cool. Guys I kept in real touch with. We kind of drifted a little bit recently, but just because I haven't been for so long. And like, but he's got this beautiful EG Civic that he's owned since it was brand new. And it's like, oh, it's just it. And then stories, like the stories you create with these people are like, they're magic. They feel like my friends. I don't get to see them ever, like, to be able to have that connection with someone that I might not see for another 2 or 3 years, but then when I meet them, it'll be like, right, let's get a beer, let's have a chat, let's talk about cars, and like, you know, that sort of stuff. So I can,
Well, I was going to say, me, you, and Frank from Downstar, we hung out quite a bit.
Especially at H-Day,
you know, I see him more than you, but when I do see him, it's just like we just click again. And when I see you, it's the same thing. It's just like it was just yesterday we were hanging out, you know?
Yeah, I miss Frank a lot. I haven't seen him in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Just because I haven't been over to the Honda stuff over in America for so long, because I've had, you know, different priorities recently. And like, for me to fly over and do all that, it is very expensive trips, you know, and I'm self-funded. Like, so to go over, I can't just ask a sponsor, like, yo, cover my trip and I'll do this promo for you. It's like very much like, well, I'm going to this Honda show. It's going to cost me maybe £2,500 to get there and stay for the trip and be out and live out there. And obviously, like H Day in New Jersey is the one I always would go to. New York is just up the road. So it's like, well, I'm going to get the train into New York and have a walk around there and have a little holiday in New York at the same time. And it was cool. Like it was great. So you'd say H Day is one of the ones that stands out for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's my go-to. Like if they said you can only go to one Honda event a year in the States, H Day. Mm-hmm. And I love Eibach, and there's plenty of other events out there that are absolutely awesome that I go to every year, and I wouldn't want to miss.
Oh, Eibach Meet's fantastic as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Eibach's amazing. But
the standard of car at that as well is unparalleled. The standard of modified car at Eibach Meets, I think, is borderline unparalleled. Like,
totally.
H-Day has some fantastic builds. Like, there's no doubt about it. But like, Eibach is like.
The thing about H-Day, which is awesome, I think, is that anyone can go. Mm. You could have a car that barely runs and it has holes of rust in it, and you could bring it to H-Day and park it and walk around and leave it, you know, on the side in the show itself. Where Eibach is like, whoa, wait a second. You need to be this caliber, otherwise you're not getting in, which is great because the only cars you see there are perfect. I mean, they're absolutely perfect. There's some cars that don't even get in, and they're really nice. H-Day, anything you want. I mean, they have sections that have the best cars in the world, which is great, but anyone can get in, which makes the event much larger and attracts more people. But like you said, you don't walk around every car in H-Day and your jaw just drops. Like Eibach, every car is jaw dropping.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. It's just
one thing I love about your US Honda shows as well is the variety of vendors you have. So you can go to H-Day with, let's say you go to H-Day or Eibach Meet with $10,000 in your card. You could buy every part you need to build a show-winning car at that event. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So another thing that you are quite renowned for, Mr. HondaPro Jason, in this Honda world is going and seeing people's private collections all over the world. Can you tell us about some of your favorites that you've seen?
Yeah, I don't know how this ended up happening. Like, it was just like, all of a sudden people started contacting me and they're like, hey, listen, maybe just because I have a voice in the community, and a lot of people have private collections, you know, they have garages that some have 2 or 3 nice cars. Some have, you know, 30 or 40 nice cars in their private collection, and it's private, but almost anyone that owns a collection, they want people to see it. Like, it's private. They don't want to invite people in. They don't want to make you crazy. And some people don't even want to know. They don't want you to know where it is. But almost all of them want people to see it. So I started getting invited to see people's private collections all over the world. So there's one I remember in Denmark I went to, that the guy had all his cars wedged, like so close you can barely open the doors.
I can remember the video. I can literally remember watching it and being like, oh my goodness, yeah.
He had a NSX, a Gen 1 NSX with like 8,000 miles on it.
Wasn't that still on the original tires?
Original tires.
Yeah, I remember that.
The plastic still inside the car that was never taken off from shipping. Like a couple of Type Rs with super low miles on them, and CRXs. I mean, just crazy stuff. There was an event I went to in Denmark. It was a private event, and the gentleman had 4 or 5 old school S600, S800s. He had a couple of cars that I've never seen in person, like Hondas, and I was like, it exists. Like, I've seen it before, but I can't believe I'm actually here touching it.
Yeah.
Totally insane. I was one of the first people to film inside Honda Secret Museum. So Honda US.
So how do we get an invite there so I can go have a look around?
You can go now. So what they were doing up until, I haven't even announced this yet. This will actually be one of the first times anyone hears this.
Oh, cool.
Every month they announce on an Instagram page that it'll be open house at this museum. And it'll be one day of the month and anyone can go. You don't even have to make a reservation. You just show up that morning and you can get a tour of the whole entire facility, no charge.
Epic.
So we'll talk after this whole COVID thing is over
Yep.
and they start up again. That it's ironic because I'm doing a video on this subject. I'm editing it right now. It should be up in the next 3 or 4 days. And I'll be talking about how everyone can go there if they want to. And I was one of the first people to go into their secret museum that was not open to the public, and they allowed me to film inside, which was amazing. So I've seen some.
I can remember watching that video and just they've got. Am I right in saying they've got an old like Japanese touring car NSX in there? I think that, or it's like a replica of one.
They have an NSX in there. I don't think they have any Japanese touring cars. They don't really have any Japanese spec cars.
Was it a white and orange one? Am I right in thinking that there was like a white and orange NSX in there? It might have been an Acura or anything. I can't remember, but
it might have been another museum.
Oh, okay.
In this museum specifically, you might be talking about the one in Ohio.
Maybe I can just remember seeing
a museum in Ohio in their Heritage Center that I think has something exactly like you're talking.
Yeah.
The one in Torrance they're all U.S. cars, and they're all except for one. They put an S800 they brought in from like New Zealand recently, but all the cars are cars that are important to the U.S. culture and have shaped the way U.S. has gone. That's why they don't have one of every single car. They have a couple Mugen cars. They have a Mugen CRX in there. They have a couple other really unique, different cars I've never seen before.
Awesome. So cool. Awesome. So that's great. That's somewhere we all need to note down to put in our once COVID is over trip to go and plan to go to.
Definitely worth it.
What is your best memory you have with Hondas? There's got to be one memory that stands out that you can just be like, wow, if I could relive that moment again in its entirety, I would.
Wow. If I had to relive one moment, honestly, I would say it was flying the Honda Jet.
That sounds amazing.
That was something that, like, you're like, oh yeah, like we talked earlier, like, yeah, I want to buy, I want to own an NSX one day. Like we all say things that we want to do and passions and dreams that we have in the world, and a lot of people are like, I want to own an NSX. I have never said I want to fly the Honda Jet. You know what I mean? It's like not even in the realm of possibility. I'm not a pilot, first of all. It'd be like me saying, oh yeah, I want to pilot the space shuttle to the moon.
Yeah.
It's like, it just doesn't happen. And sure enough, Honda contacted me. This is about 2 years ago, maybe more, maybe 3 years ago. Honda contacted me like, hey, listen, we want to bring you out for you to tour the Honda Jet facility to see how we make the Honda Jet, and you can put it on a YouTube channel. And this is Honda Aircraft that's doing it. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. But if I'm going to go out there and film, the production of the Honda Jet, I'd like to get a flight in one. And they emailed me back. They're like, no, that's really nice that you want it, but you're not going to get a flight in the Honda Jet. It's at the time it was like 4.5 million. They're like, it's a 4.5 million jet, $4.5 million jet. We can't just let you fly around in it. I'm like, okay, then I'm not going to come out. And I put my big boy pants on. I'm like, I'm just not doing it. And then they came back to me about a week later and they're like, you know what? We talked to some people and you've been cleared for flight. You can get a flight in the jet. I'm like, oh my God, like that actually worked. So the day's fast approaching, right? And we're like 3 weeks away and I'm getting all my camera ready and everything all set up. And they sent me an email. They're like, we regret to inform you that because of heightened production, we can't allow you to take a tour of the facility right now. We're really sorry, but we'll have to let you know when it happens again. And I was crushed. I was so crushed. I was like, I called all my connections at Honda and I'm like, did I do something to piss someone off? Like, did I do something wrong? Because this was all set and now it's not. And the connections at Honda said, we don't have anything to do with the jet. Honda Aircraft is Honda Aircraft. They're separate from Honda Automobiles. So they're like, we don't know what happened. So I decided just to every month send him an email. Did anything change? I'm ready. When you guys are ready, I'm ready. Every month for about 9 months, I finally got a message back. Jason, we're ready. Cool. I go, so the same thing, I can take a tour, I can film, I can take a flight in the jet. They're like, flight in the jet? You can't get a flight in the jet. I'm like, listen, here's all the emails. I was approved for flight. Like I was granted flight. And they're like, okay. Just come on down and we'll do it. Cool. So I pack up all myself. And actually it worked out perfectly because they're located in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is not far from Albany, New York, which is where I bought my Civic Type R. And the date ended up perfectly. It was 2 days after I bought my Type R. So I literally bought my car, drove it right down to the Honda Jet.
Wow.
It's a Honda aircraft. So I get a full tour. Yeah, I get all my filming done. I take a full tour. We go out to lunch. I come back. I meet the pilot. He's going to take me up. And the pilot's talking to me. He's like, so what do you want to do in the jet? I'm like, I don't know. What are our choices? He goes, well, we can do like a fast takeoff, a stall, not a barrel roll, but like a 90-degree this and that. And I'm like, dude, let's do everything. It's cool. He goes, and you want to fly it, right? I go, of course I do. Just like that, right? Not even thinking. So we get up in the air and we're flying around and he's doing all this cool stuff. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I'm sitting, right next to him in the other seat. And he goes, cool. He goes, you ready to fly? I go, yeah, but I have to tell you something. Excuse me. I go, I don't have a license. Like, I don't have a pilot's license. I really don't know how to fly a plane. He goes, I didn't ask you. He goes, it's real simple. He starts hitting all these buttons. All these alarms start going off. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm taking off all the autopilots. He goes, you're going to hand fly it. I go, oh, I'm like, ah. So
we're going to die.
I grab the yoke and here we go. Flying around. I flew it for about 15, 20 minutes. Unbelievable.
Wow.
And it was like, so I've flown a plane before. I flew like a small, like a little Cessna, like a little, nothing, little plane. It's like the Cessna was very much like a Civic. This was like an NSX. Mm-hmm. And just the way it felt and handled and everything was so smooth and just well polished. It was pretty awesome. So we're done with the flight. He lands the plane, right? Everything's cool. He comes down, he sees my Type R. He goes, is that a Type R? I go, yeah. He goes, I've never seen one. I go, here are the keys, take it out. He goes, no, I can't drive your car. I go, you just let me fly your plane, which at the time now is $5 million. You can take my car out. So the pilot jumped in my car, whipped it around a little bit and brought it back. He goes, that was awesome. I go, that's what I felt. It was cool. It was a really good experience.
That is way better story than I thought I was going to get from you, Jason. I thought we were going to get some like story about you driving an NSX or something, but a plane? Okay, you win that one. I haven't got a story that beats that one. My goodness me. So just before I come on here with this conversation, I was talking to one of my old Honda friends. I've known him since I was 18, like big Honda guy. And I said, I'm about to talk to HondaPro Jason. Have you got anything you can suggest me asking? And his question is almost very similar to what I was going to ask you next. So I want to give a shout out to Tegboy on Instagram, @Tegboy, my good friend James. And he has said, if you were given a Honda, any Honda, apart from the plane, you can't say the plane, for 24 hours, where would you take it? And it's got, you got to tell us what Honda would it be and where are you going in it?
Wow. It's a great idea. Okay, so I would take, I would take a Honda T360, the very first Honda for mass production. It was a truck. And
the little weird thing, right?
The little weird thing.
They're blue, right? They're normally blue.
Yeah, May blue was the color. It's the only color it came in. And it was like basically a mid-engine. The engine was in the middle of it. And the front popped open. There was a little spare tire and everything in there. It was a little pickup truck. Came out just like months right before the S600 came out. Or the S500 came out. And
I'm just gonna get a picture up on my phone so I can put it on the screen so people know.
Yeah, so you can see what it looks like. And I would take this that Ab's frantically looking for.
No, I had a really good picture because I've got fat thumbs. I've changed it to the wrong one. Okay.
And the reason is this is not my favorite Honda, but this is the first Honda. And there's so many Honda fans out there don't know much past or before like the Civic. So because of that, I would take this car.
Okay, we're there. We've got it. Okay, there we go.
Got it? I would take that car and I would drive it to an event, probably like H-Day, honestly. And I would try to help educate people and explain to them that this is what started it all. Like, this is the first four-wheel vehicle Honda ever made for mass production, and blow their minds and explain to them, the importance of this car. And maybe that would spark them to look into a little bit more Honda history and learn more about, where Honda came from. And Honda's not just the car that you own, not just your CRX or not just your Civic or your Del Sol or whatever it is. So that's exactly what I would do. Never had that question asked before, but that's what it would be.
Oh, Tegboy, thank you for giving us a question you've never, ever had asked for you. Well, tell me as well, this is one I've just thought from the top of my head, your dream garage for your house. Like, list some of the cars you'd have in. Let's say you've got 5 cars you can have in there, and 2 of them are already we're going to delete your 2 cars. So you've got 5 spaces now. Your Type R's gone and your HRV's gone, but you can put them back in if you want. But you've got 5 spaces to fill.
Honestly, I'd probably take them all up with just Civic Type R's.
Yep. What your current Type R?
Yeah, my current one, and then just go back. I would be short one, wouldn't I? I think I'd be short 1. So I'm going to take out 1 Civic Type R, and I'm going to take out the FK2.
I think that's fair because yours is very similar to that.
Very similar, and honestly, I mean, I like the FK2. I'm not taking anything away from it, but it's really a Civic that Honda turned into a Type R, much like some of the other ones, which makes the FK8 so unique. Is the FK8 was built as a Type R, and then Honda built the Civic off of that. Like Honda's research and engineering went into the car and said, "Listen, we're going to build the Type R, and we're going to build the chassis, and we're going to build the suspension. We're going to set this all up, length, width, height, all for a Type R." And then once we're done, we're going to mass produce a regular Civic out of that one and make it a hatchback. Where a lot of the other Type Rs were, okay, so we have the Civic. Let's take it apart. Let's put a bigger engine in it. Let's change the suspension up a little bit. Let's change the drivetrain up a little bit. Let's put different seats in it. Let's make it a Type R. Where the FK was actually a Type R made into a Civic, which makes it unique. So yeah, I would fill my garage with all Type Rs, minus the FK2. Just because I've always wanted a garage full of Type Rs. Civic Type R's.
I think mine would be NSXR, both gens.
Okay.
NSX Targa, so like a normal NSX, but the one you can take the roof out of the middle of.
Yeah, familiar.
And EK9.
Okay.
And an EG6. That would be my 3 NSXs already taken up the whole space. In fact, no, I'm going to delete the facelift NSX Type R, and I'm gonna throw a DC2 in there. Because I don't need 2 NSX Type Rs.
Okay, let me ask you a question. There's a lot of most Asian countries never got a facelift S2000 or NSX. Did you guys get that in the UK? Did you get a facelift S2000?
We did, but we never got the 2.2 VTEC. So it stayed with the F20C.
Right.
But it come with upgraded brakes, suspension.
Okay.
Like different bumpers. Like the facelift one is, in my opinion, the better looking one. Like,
sure.
It come with better, like bigger wheels on it and all that sort of stuff.
Do you know why? Do you know why the US got the 2.2 and no one else really got it but the US?
No.
We blew up all the 2.0s. We did. We revved them. We missed shifts. We blew them up. And the way warranty works is, unfortunately, warranty here in the US, Honda warranty is pretty much everything. And they're warranting transmission, warranting engines over and over and over again. They said, stop. Honestly, if you guys can't drive, we're sick of paying for it. So let's make the displacement bigger, bring their RPMs down 8,500 and save the engines. And there you go. So the US got those, because most of the rest of the world, warranty works differently. Like in the UK, a lot of things that people break, they take responsibility for. They're like, I broke it. Dealership, I broke it. In the US, they're like, why'd it break? And people literally, I worked at a dealership for 20 years. You wouldn't believe how many people came in, smashed like front bumpers into medians or curbs, and like, I want to cover it under warranty. Why? You smashed in a curb. I don't care. It shouldn't have broken. And sometimes Honda would cover it.
Oh my goodness.
And they smash up, they'd scratch up wheels, they'd break interior parts, they'd break center consoles, rip them off, and Honda should cover it. UK, Asia, Europe, they'd never think about doing that. So I'm not saying it's 100% fact, but it's pretty much the reason why we went 2.2, because we kept blowing up the other ones.
Wow. Have you got any other cool little interesting facts like that you can share?
I have a lot of interesting facts. A lot of them I don't think I should share or could share.
Have you got any that you can?
I'll tell you what. I'll give you I have a theory on what's going to happen with the next Civic Type R.
I'd love to hear your theory.
And this is based on a pretty good fact. Now this.
Before you start, do I need to go put a tinfoil hat on? Is this like a conspiracy theory?
It's not a conspiracy theory, but I will tell you that this has not come from Honda corporate. No one at Honda talked to me about this. This is all my own idea, and it's my own hypothesis.
Cool. I look forward to hearing it. Let's go.
The next Civic Type R, which should be out in 2022, is going to be all-wheel drive and a hybrid.
Oh.
So Honda's already announced by 2022, they will not sell a car in Europe that's not a hybrid technology of some sort. It has to be electrified. So that's a fact. 2022, every car is going to have to be electrified in Europe. They're not taking the Civic Type R from Europe, right? It's been there longer than anywhere other than Japan has been in Europe, right? So they're not going to pull the Type R from you, which means the Civic Type R is going to be electrified in some way. Now, they're not going to make a front-wheel drive hybrid engine because there's no power to be made there. But they already make a hybrid all-wheel drive in the NSX.
Of course.
So they take the same exact idea, they make it front-wheel engine, gasoline, rear-wheel electric, and they produce the new Civic Type R. It's now a hybrid, and it's all-wheel drive. And that's why I think that's going to happen.
You made yours all-wheel drive?
I have had an all-wheel drive system put on my car, not permanently, because the all-wheel drive system is not ready for production yet.
Okay.
But there is a company called Orbis up in Northern California that have built all-wheel drive electric motors that they're going to put on my car. It was supposed to be August. I'm hoping that the stupid COVID thing doesn't change that, because in August, I'm having them installed and driving the car back home. So my car will be the very first all-wheel drive FK8, front gasoline engine, 454 horsepower, rear electric motors, a total of about another 150 horsepower, which puts me at like 600 or so. That's going to
be crazy.
So what's going to be even crazier is that I told you earlier in this pod that my car is painted Phoenix yellow. And the reason I painted it is because it's an old Civic Type R color, and Honda refused to come out with that color when it was new. Flat out refused. I talked to Honda many times. They said, we're not doing Phoenix yellow. We will not do that color. No one wants a yellow car. Cool. I'll do it. And guess what's coming out?
They stole your idea.
Honda they're coming out with a Phoenix yellow limited edition Civic Type R. So this is what I tell you. You're exactly right. They stole my idea. So what I tell people when they ask me, because I get asked all the time, HondaPro, are you mad they stole your whole concept? I said, I stole their color. They stole my idea. We're good.
Do you know what would be super cool? Because I know they occasionally put Easter eggs in the cars, don't they? You know, little hidden. It'd be so cool if they put an HPJ somewhere or just something like that, just to like pay homage to you because you didn't just have it resprayed. You had it stripped, a brand new car stripped back to bare shell, and had it done the whole car done like that, and it was amazing. So like I think that would be a real special treat. I think that if anyone from Honda US ever hears this, or like anyone from Honda at all, like I think just put a little HPJ in there somewhere. It doesn't have to be even when it just starts up, you know, on the dash when it like all lights up, just a little HPJ.
You can hide it behind the glove box. I don't care. Anywhere you want to emboss something would be amazing. Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. So they are doing that, and I'm assuming that if I'm correct about the all-wheel drive, then after my car will be all-wheel drive, 2022 or maybe 23, their car will also be all-wheel drive. Electric motors too, which will be crazy.
Yeah, that would be so cool. Before we bring all this to a close, I'd love to ask a couple more questions.
Sure, what's up?
One is just a broad question about the people you've met and all that. So like,
Sure.
Do you have any either people or cars specifically that stand out with you that you're like, wow, like that was a moment, like, you know, like it could be anything, even at just a meet when you meet a kid that's got no money but is still passionately building this car, or like a collector, or just anything, or an old guy that's had an old Civic for 40 years, or just anything like that. So
there have been so many people. Like I've got to meet and spend some time with BC from BC Moto, and I got to actually drive his 1,000+ horsepower Odyssey minivan.
Yeah, and people might have seen that on the Fastest Car Show on Netflix, wasn't he? So.
Yes, yeah, they drag raced it. It didn't do very good in that show, but
no, it didn't.
The car is pretty incredible to drive. He literally, I was at a car meet and I'd met him before, and we were talking, and I was talking about his car. And he literally threw the keys to me through the air. He goes, "Hey, you go drive it," and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
And off I go. It was pretty incredible. I've met a lot of passionate people. I mean, and some people that just the passion outweighs maybe their disability. I've met some people that have had, you know, one leg, and they've built cars, and they specifically built cars that were manual drive cars to prove that they can do anything. I've met a lot of people with other handicaps that have built vehicles that, you know, talking to them, they have multiple sclerosis or something where when you talk to them, you realize quickly that there's something wrong. And you also think that there's no way they have the capability of building a vehicle. Like they don't have a really good control over the arms or the legs or whatever it is, but they seem to be able to hold it together enough to put together an engine, hold it together enough to build the vehicles. And when I hear those stories and meet these people, it's like, it's crazy because their passion outweighs their disability.
That's awesome.
Which is, it's awesome. And yeah, there's so many people that have owned cars, you know, bought cars brand new back in the 70s or 80s. And they're usually, obviously they're older people, and they come out to these meets, and it's funny because a lot of people walk right by them. You know, as an older gentleman or a lady at a meet with a fairly stock car that's just old. And I happen to walk by and stop and take a look and meet them. And they're like, you're HondaPro Jason. I'm like, yeah, how are you? And they very quickly tell me, I want you to look at my car. I've had this since brand new. Here's the original, you know, the sheet off the window, the Minroni, you know, that we have out here that says, hey, I bought this car new and here's all the other information. And it's very unique to hear some of their stories. Recently just got back from Cocoa Beach, Florida, and met a lady that has a 2000 S2000, right? 34 miles on it. 34 original. It's like what? And she bought it because she bought one. She started driving it. She loved it so much. She bought a second one just as a spare and never drove it. Just sitting in a garage. Like what? Like it's just it's crazy to meet these people. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting people with very, very cool cars out there. And so many cars and collections. You talked about collections. I've probably seen maybe 14 or 15 private collections that I've been able to film, right? I can't imagine how many more collections are out there that I don't know about. Or there are some people that have contacted me and said, listen, we want you to come out to Europe or to Greece or to Africa, South Africa. And they're like, I have a collection you really want to see. And I'm like, sure. Where they get the cars from and why they're keeping them all. Most of them don't drive them. They just hold them. It's pretty insane.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. My final question is, once all this virus stuff is cleared out and we're all ready to party again, what's next for you?
A very busy schedule of traveling. I had to cancel a lot of trips because of this whole thing going on. Obviously, I can't fly within the country, let alone out of the country. So I had to put a lot of stuff on hold. And I think that once this is over, my schedule is going to be back-to-back trips. And I'm used to it. You know, I'm used to leaving home and coming back 2 or 3 weeks later and traveling around the U.S., sometimes out of the country before I return back home again. But I think this is going to be much more extensive. There's 3 or 4 dealerships that have opened up. They've rebuilt. They were rebuilding before this is over, before this started. Now that this is going to be over, they're done building. They want me out for like grand openings. So I'll be doing a lot of grand openings. I'll be doing a lot of car shows. And I think the car shows are going to be pretty epic because we haven't had any yet. And so everyone's everyone's pent up. Everyone's ready. They're ready to explode and they're ready to go to all the shows. So I think the shows are going to be much bigger. So the H days are going to be huge. I have a couple of things. I'll be coming your way. I'll be coming your way soon. We talked a little bit about that, but I want to wait for this to be over till I actually announce, you know, when and where I'm going.
Of course.
HEM for France again. I think it's going to be awesome. So I'll be definitely traveling around the world, around the U.S., probably nonstop till the end of the year.
That's awesome, man. Thank you very much for your time. Can you please shout out your socials so where people can find you and follow you and check out your content that you've created?
So simple. Anything, just look up HondaPro Jason.
Across the board.
That's it. Every single page is the same. It's all HondaPro Jason. Find me on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on Yelp. I'm on, you name it, LinkedIn. Anywhere, just look up the name. Just Google HondaPro Jason, whatever social media you want. I got stuff on there.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, sir. Glad to see you again and have a good old chit chat. I hope the listeners and viewers out there, whatever platform you guys are checking us out on, have enjoyed our conversation. And make sure you follow Jason. Please make sure you follow me. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform, like I said, you're listening to. and hopefully you'll tune back in next time. Jason, thank you once again, my dude. Have a great rest of your day.
My pleasure. And
everyone,
are you ready?
Yeah, go.
As always, guys, I'm the Honda and now you're in the know.
Love it. Cheers, dude. Thank you. See you guys later. Bye-bye.